Hi everyone, I decided to do my presentation on the law of cosines. What is the law of cosines? So as we can see, the law of cosines has three different equations, and actually these are just the side-side angle equations. There are three more equations for side-side-side in which you can find a corresponding angle if you don't have any of the angles. But we'll talk about those in a minute. In this case, again, we have two sides and we have an opposite angle of the side we are trying to find. So if we have A and B as sides, then we would have C as the angle. A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times cosine of C, right? And we're trying to find the side C. How do we know when to use the law of cosines? So we want to use the law of cosines, similar to the law of sines, when we do not have a right triangle, when we want to find the value of a side angle side triangle, or when we want to find the value of an angle in a side triangle, right? Where we have all of the sides, but we don't have any of the angles. Now, don't forget, we always want to solve for the largest angle first on a side triangle. This is because of the ambiguous case. So I'm going to share here an ambiguous case where, we have 10 here for side A, but we also could have 10 here for side A. And then the angle for A is still 30. So you could have two different triangles, an obtuse triangle and an acute triangle with the same angle. So if we do the largest side first, we avoid having that case. So that is why we always try to find the largest angle first, because it also will tell us if the triangle is even possible. So if the value for the largest angle is a small number, then you know that the triangle isn't possible because they all have to add up to 180 for each of the angles. And if that is the small, like if that one is supposed to be the largest and it's a small angle, you would know that you have a problem. Now here, we're going to use the law of cosines to solve for the missing values. Now, what do we know? We know that side A is 6, side B is 10, and angle C is 80 degrees. We still need to know side C, and if we need to solve for all the values, which we're going to do here, then we need to know angle B and angle A as well. Now here, we are going to try to find the value of C first. So in that case, like I said, we're going to use a side angle side equation. So I plugged in the numbers. C squared equals 6 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 6 times 10 times the cosine of 80 degrees. So if you plug all of this into your calculator, I kind of broke it down to where each one was squared. 120 is 2 times 6 times 10. And then the cosine of 80 degrees is 0.17364. Make sure that your calculator is in degrees. Here, the next equation, it breaks down a little bit further. And then here, I forgot to just add the square root, but it changes from C squared to just C. So you need to take the square root of 115.1623, and you will get 10.7314. Now, another way to use the law of cosines is if you are using it on a side triangle, where you would try to find an angle. So here, it breaks it down to find cosine of C rather than one of the sides. So here you're going to take side A plus side B, or whatever side you are not finding the angle that corresponds with it. So in this case, it's A plus B. In this case, you're trying to find A, so you do B plus C, and then you will subtract the side that you are looking for the angle for. So we are not looking for the angle A or angle B. A plus B minus, we are looking for angle C, so minus C. So that's a good way to remember these equations. So to find these, we have a couple of different options. Since we're doing the law of cosines, that's what I'm going to use. But I want you to recognize that when you have all of your sides and a single angle, you do have the option to use the law of sines, because you will have, in this case, C, so like the sine of C, sine of 80 degrees, over 10.73 will be equal to the sine of B, or the sine of A, over 6 or 10. So the sine of B over 10, or the sine of A over 6. In this case, we're going to use cosine B equals A squared plus C squared minus B squared over 2AC to find the value of B. So here, Again, I plugged in the numbers, 6 squared plus 10.73 squared minus 10 squared divided by 2 times 6 times 10.73. And then you take the inverse of cosine to get 66.59, right? So we had cosine on this side, but we want cosine on the other side to get b by itself. So we take the inverse of cosine and we get our angle. Now, every triangle's angle adds up to 180. So here we have 180 minus 80 for our C angle minus 66.59 equals angle A. So we don't have to use the law of cosines for that. If you want to check your work, you can to make sure you come up with the same answer. That's always a great thing to do. And then we will get the angle of A is 33.41. Now we have all of our values for our triangle. We started out with just 6, 80, and 10. And now we have the value for side C and the angles for angle B and angle A. Now, some of the takeaways from this lesson, we should definitely know the law of cosines equations. Then acknowledge the problem or what the problem gives you. So we know that we had a side angle side problem, and we need to acknowledge that. And we need to choose our equation based on what we know. So if we have a side angle side, we're going to be looking for a side, right? If we have a side triangle, then we're going to be looking for an angle, and we'll know that we need to use the cosine of B equals a squared plus c squared minus b squared over 2ac, right? We want to make sure that we always solve for the biggest angle first on a side triangle. That is very important so that we avoid ambiguity. And then we celebrate because we have all of our values.